All right, explorers, welcome back to another deep dive with yours truly. Today we're going somewhere pretty unique, I'd say. We're looking at biblical prophecy, but with a twist of ancient mysticism, even some astronomy thrown in for good measure.
Sounds like an intriguing mix, doesn't it?
It really does.
So are you ready to jump in?
Absolutely. What are we diving into today?
Well, our source material is this YouTube video. It's by William Donahue, and it's called 883 Revelation Sun Savior.
Just the title alone is enough to pique my interest. What's the central premise here?
Well, the speaker starts by diving straight into the book of Revelation, specifically chapter 21, where John talks about a new heaven and a new earth.
Okay.
But instead of taking it literally, he connects this vision to a major astrological shift. The transition from the Age of Pisces to the Age of Aquarius.
Ooh, okay. I see. Now, for those of us who aren't exactly astrology buffs, could you maybe break down what these ages actually are?
Sure. Think of them as like vast periods of time, each associated with a specific constellation. We're talking thousands of years here.
Thousands of years, wow.
The speaker explains that this transition, well, it isn't just some abstract concept either. He points to the actual movement of the sun and Uranus into specific positions within the Aquarius constellation.
Okay, so there's a real astronomical phenomenon happening here. But how does this tie into the book of Revelation?
That's where it gets fascinating. The speaker suggests this Age of Aquarius. It signals a huge shift in human consciousness.
Okay.
And to back this up, he points to major global events like the collapse of communism,
Interesting.
surprising peace efforts, even the vision Saddam Hussein claimed to have during the Gulf War.
Hold on. Is he suggesting that the Bible predicted these historical events based on the stars?
Well, it's not quite that simple. It's more about how these astrological ages, they could influence human consciousness and in turn shape global events.
I see.
The speaker leaves it open for us to ponder. Is this a literal prediction or a metaphor for the kind of changes we experience on a larger scale?
I see. That's interesting. Now, this next part is where I really sat up and paid attention. The speaker makes a pretty bold claim. He says that Jesus is repeatedly identified as the sun god in the Bible. I say, you don't hear that in your average Sunday sermon.
Right. It's definitely thought-provoking.
Yeah.
He brings up specific examples like how the word amen at the end of prayers could be a reference to the Egyptian sun god, Amen-Ra.
Okay.
He even references Matthew 2:2.1, where it says, "Out of Egypt have I called my son."
Right. He also connects it to Psalm 19.46, which describes the sun as a bridegroom coming out of his chamber. Okay, so where does this sun god concept come from? Is he suggesting that Christianity is secretly sun worship?
Not quite. He traces this idea back to the ancient prophet Zoroaster.
Okay.
And he explains that Zoroaster initiated sun worship, emphasizing the sun as a symbol of life and light.
Zoroaster, the name rings a bell, but I can't quite place it. Remind me.
He was a hugely influential figure in ancient Persia, and
Wow.
his teachings had a profound impact on the development of monotheism. The speaker even links Zoroaster to the Magi, the wise men who followed the star to find Jesus, according to the Bible.
Ah, that's right. So are we all supposed to become sun worshipers now?
Hold your horses. Remember, we're exploring an interpretation here. The point isn't to take everything literally, but to consider the symbolism and the deeper meaning behind these connections.
Okay, that makes sense. But I am curious to hear more about how all of this ties together. Where does this whole new heaven and new earth idea fit in with this sun god concept?
Well, that's where the speaker's interpretation takes another fascinating turn. He tackles the idea of the New Jerusalem, but not as a physical city. Instead, he suggests it represents a spiritual state.
Whoa, okay, so he's saying the New Jerusalem isn't someplace we go, but something we become.
Exactly.
In-
He breaks down the word Jerusalem itself, Jerus meaning vision of God, and Selah meaning perfect peace. He argues that the New Jerusalem refers to achieving higher consciousness, a state of inner peace, in connection with the divine.
So we're talking about inner transformation here, rather than an external event.
Precisely.
Okay, but how do we actually achieve this New Jerusalem within ourselves?
Well, that's where things get even more interesting. The speaker ties the idea of achieving this inner Jerusalem to practices like meditation.
Meditation, okay.
He believes that by calming the mind and connecting with our inner selves, we can reach a state of perfect peace and experience a vision of God.
I'm starting to see how these pieces fit together now. The Age of Aquarius, the symbolism of the sun god, and this idea of reaching a higher consciousness through practices like meditation. It's a pretty radical reinterpretation of the book of Revelation, wouldn't you say?
It certainly is. And remember, this is just one interpretation. We're not saying this is the definitive truth, but it definitely makes you think about these ancient texts in a new light.
Absolutely. It's all about exploring different perspectives and seeing what resonates with you. But before we get too lost in the cosmos, there's one more point I want to bring up. The speaker makes a rather cryptic statement about there being no more sea in this new heaven and new earth. What's that all about?
The disappearing sea.
Yeah.
It seems pretty literal at first, right?
Yeah.
But the speaker explains that the sea, it's actually a symbol of turbulent emotions. He
Yeah.
connects it to typhoons, like the ancient sea monster Typhon, representing those overwhelming forces that can drown us emotionally.
So instead of literal oceans,
Yeah.
he's talking about the stormy seas of our inner world. It's about finding peace within ourselves amidst all the chaos.
Exactly.
Interesting.
He even uses the parting of the Red Sea as an example of a
Uh-huh.
shift in consciousness.
Wow.
Imagine that powerful image. The water splitting, creating a path to freedom.
Wow, yeah. So he's saying we need to learn to navigate our emotions, to find that inner peace, rather than being swept away by them.
That's a great way to put it. It's about achieving a state of inner harmony, where those turbulent emotions no longer control us. It's about finding that calm amidst the storm.
This is all so intricate. It's like he's weaving together biblical passages, ancient mythology, astronomy, and personal insights into this fascinating tapestry. My mind is buzzing. What are your thoughts on this so far?
It's definitely a lot to take in, but that's what makes these deep dives so rewarding, right?
It really is.
We're challenged to think critically, to question our assumptions, and to consider new perspectives.
Absolutely. You know what? I'm actually starting to see the book of Revelation in a whole new light. It's not just about predicting the end of the world, but also about understanding our own inner world and the potential for transformation.
That's the power of exploration. And remember, this is just one interpretation. There's always more to discover and ponder.
Well, we've certainly covered a lot of ground already. Why don't we stop there for today? Come back tomorrow, and we'll dive even deeper into these fascinating ideas.
Sounds good to me.
All right, see you then.
See ya. So we're back, picking up right where we left off in this pretty fascinating interpretation of the new heaven and new earth.
Yeah.
As we go deeper into this video by William Donahue, we run into some more pretty intriguing connections between biblical prophecy and ancient wisdom.
Yeah, one thing that stuck out to me
Mhm.
was that whole idea about the sea representing turbulent emotions.
Yeah.
It's such a powerful image, isn't it?
It is. And the speaker makes a point of saying that in this new heaven and new earth, there's no more sea.
Right, which we talked about. It's symbolic rather than literal.
Exactly. It's all about overcoming those internal struggles, achieving a state of peace,
Yeah.
where you aren't constantly battling your emotions.
Oh, yeah.
He used that example of the Red Sea parting, connecting it to a shift in consciousness.
Right.
Which fits in with that broader theme of spiritual transformation that runs throughout the whole video.
Yeah, it's like he's saying crossing the Red Sea represents moving from turmoil and slavery to freedom and peace.
And this freedom and peace is ultimately found in union with the divine, symbolized by the bridegroom, the sun, and the chaste virgin of pure consciousness.
Now, that chaste virgin metaphor, it's a little jarring to hear at first, to be honest.
Sure.
Can you maybe unpack that a bit more?
Remember, we're working with symbolic language here. It's not about being literally a virgin. It's more about having a clear and receptive mind, free from the clutter of the material world. Think of it like making space for the divine to grow.
Okay, so it's about getting ready, making room for that spiritual awakening.
Exactly. It's about that moment when that incorruptible seed of spiritual awakening is planted in us and leads to a transformation of our inner being.
And this transformation, this new Jerusalem, it's something we can all achieve, right? It's not just for a select few.
Absolutely. The speaker emphasizes that this new Jerusalem isn't some place you go. It's a spiritual reality you can access inside yourself.
Okay, he breaks the word down. Jeruel, meaning vision of God,
Mm.
and Salem, meaning perfect peace. It's almost like a formula for inner peace.
And he suggests that meditation is the key to unlocking that door, to raising your consciousness to a higher level where you can experience the new Jerusalem.
I see. But how does all of this connect to the bigger picture,
Yeah.
to everything that's happening in the world around us?
That's where the whole astrology piece comes back in. The speaker links the arrival of this new Jerusalem to the Age of Aquarius, which he believes is starting a new era of human consciousness.
Right.
He uses those big changes like the fall of communism, the peace initiatives, even unrelated things like Saddam Hussein's vision as proof of that Aquarian influence.
Okay.
This is a pretty interesting take. It makes you wonder if there's some connection
Right.
between what's going on out in the world and what's happening inside each of us.
So is he saying that astrology can predict the future?
That's a tough one. It deserves some real thought. I think it's more about understanding the symbolism and the influence, rather than seeing it as a literal prediction.
I see. This whole conversation is making me look at the book of Revelation differently. Instead of just all the doom and gloom, there's this sense of hope, this possibility for personal change.
Exactly. It's about recognizing we have the power to create change inside ourselves and out in the world.
That's a powerful message. I still have a lot of questions, though. Like, how does this whole spiritual transformation thing actually work in everyday life? How do we balance our inner world with all the stuff happening outside?
Those are good questions. I think that's the cool thing about this whole deep dive. It's made us curious. It's challenged what we thought we knew, and it's given us a lot to think about.
It has. I think that's a good place to stop for today. We'll pick this up tomorrow and get even deeper into these ideas.
Sounds good. All right, so we're back for the final part of our deep dive into the book of Revelation.
Yeah, we've been on quite a journey with William Donahue and his pretty unique take on things.
Yeah, it's been really thought-provoking, hasn't it? We started with the Age of Aquarius, then went to the whole sun god symbolism, and ended up with that New Jerusalem as a state of consciousness.
I know, it's amazing how he ties it all together, right? Like all these different things, biblical passages, mythology, astronomy, even personal stuff. It's like a big tapestry of meaning.
And what really stands out to me is how he keeps saying to look beyond the literal words and find the deeper meaning, the spiritual side of it.
Right, like that whole thing about the sea representing our turbulent emotions. That's such a powerful image, you know? Think about those times when you feel totally overwhelmed, like you're drowning in all your feelings.
Exactly. And the point isn't to get rid of those feelings. It's about learning to deal with them, to find peace in the middle of all the chaos. Remember that image he uses? The Red Sea parting, making a way to escape? That's like a symbol of a shift in consciousness.
Yeah, it's about finding that inner strength to keep going, even when everything feels crazy. And that brings us back to the New Jerusalem, not a real city, but a state of peace inside you, connecting with something bigger.
And it's not just for some special group of people either. He makes it clear that this New Jerusalem is something we can all reach. It's inside each of us. We can get there by doing things like meditation, calming our minds, and connecting with ourselves.
Yeah, it's about creating a space inside where we can experience real peace and connect with something beyond ourselves.
And it's not just about changing ourselves either. Donahue says this shift in consciousness, this move towards the New Jerusalem, affects the whole world.
Right, he connects it to the Age of Aquarius, this new era where human consciousness is evolving. And he uses those big events as proof, the fall of communism, those peace efforts, even that weird vision Saddam Hussein had.
It makes you think, doesn't it? Is there a link between what's happening inside each of us and what's going on in the world?
It's like we're all part of this big evolution, individually and as a whole. And maybe if we all find inner peace and connect with something higher, we can help create a more peaceful world.
It's a beautiful idea and definitely something worth aiming for. But it's good to remember this is just one way of looking at the book of Revelation. There are lots of different views out there, and it's up to each of us to find what speaks to us personally.
Absolutely. This deep dive was all about showing you a different way of understanding this old text, and hopefully it's made you curious to learn more.
And if you're feeling inspired to go deeper into these ideas or any other fascinating topics, we encourage you to come back every day for a new deep dive with us.
And if you're looking for some guidance on your own path of personal growth and spiritual exploration, check out www.ultimatemasters.org/coaching or message us on WhatsApp at +256 771 324 119.
Don't forget to share this deep dive with others who might find it helpful. You never know, you might just spark their interest and inspire them to start their own journey of discovery.
Thanks for joining us on this exploration, and until next time, keep searching, keep asking questions, and keep diving deep.